Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Eve Rickert. I'm the publisher at Thornapple Press, and I'm recording today from the homelands of the Adena and Hopewell peoples, whose descendants are the Shawnee, Miami, Wyandot, Delaware, and Seneca Cayuga nations. And I apologize if I got my land acknowledgement wrong because I am traveling right now, and so I had to investigate this information before we recorded today. And I'm here with Evita Sawyers, who is the author of the brand new book, A Polyamory Devotional. And Evita, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I am Evita Sawyers. I am the creator of today's polyamory reminder. So I do education, coaching, also content creation on polyamory, non-monogamy, sex positivity, kink. That's a newer space, but basically all things alternative relationship styles. I'm also the subject of the documentary Polylove. I'm queer, I'm Black, I'm a mom, and I'm excited to be here today.
Thanks so much for joining. So tell us about your book. The official pub date is October 20th, which is 11 days from when we're recording, but this is probably going to come out around pub day. So
Yes. So what it started as was a challenge that I gave to myself in 2020 to see if I could post a polyamory like reminder, reflection, thought once a day and see if I could get a full 365. We were all stuck in the house. It was COVID. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And so I was like, I don't have anything to do. I was laid off from my job at the right beforehand. And so, and I had already kind of been doing that anyways, in the various groups I was in online on my own personal page. I would talk about my non-monogamy experience. It was very resonant for people. And so I would post just like a thought, every so often, and it would usually get a lot of traction. And so I was like, well, what if I just started doing this regularly and seeing if I could make 365 of these and then like comprise like something similar to a devotional where, daily you have like a small reflection that you can go to or just open the book randomly and kind of whatever the universe message sends to you. I find that format to be appealing for people who struggle to have the attention span to read a complete book all the way through. And so it really just started as like an online challenge that I made for myself. Can you come up with 365 of these? And then I got the idea to compile it into a book. And so the polyamory devotional was born from that challenge.
okay. So, and kind of when you started putting together the manuscript, what was your curation process like? I mean, I know a lot of it came from your online posts. I think some of it was original. How did you decide on the mix? What to use? Is there a thematic organization, or what's the structure to it?
So there are a few that are strategic. I know the first one was strategic and the last one was strategic for sure. I actually just read it recently for an event that I did on polyamory and spirituality, and we read the last one because I made sure that it was the last one. A lot of them just kind of follow something of the timeline of when they were released. There are a couple that are kind of moved around, or if I felt like, one was a little bit too, reticent of the one from the day before. I might, move it a couple of places. And then some of them were new. So I didn't have a full 365 when I was writing the book. So I had to actually write some other ones. And so some of those are also peppered in there as well. So there's not like a theme for like how it flows. Like I said, a few of them are some that were like I put specifically where I was like, oh, this one goes really well with this one. So if this is the day before, this one should be the next day. But for the most part, it's relatively chronological. Like I said, with a few of the newer ones kind of sandwiched in there in different places. And then like for sure, the first one and the last one are ones that I intentionally placed in the succession.
And I will mention for those considering getting the book, there is an index to the book. So if you're looking for pieces on specific topics, you will be able to find them that way as well. Can you talk about sort of the inspiration and source for the pieces that you wrote? Were these coming from your own life? from things that you were seeing out in the broader world? A mix. What was generating these?
Lots of things. My own personal experiences are in there a ton. So there are lots of reflections that I came from, various polyamorous experiences that I had, and looking back on how I showed up or how I didn't show up and wanted to show up. And so there's a lot of my experiences in the pages, also what I see in the community at large. So I've been in non-monogamous communities for a really long time because, when I got into polyamory and non-monogamy, I joined all the groups, because I wanted community. And so some of that comes from some of the things that I've seen reflected, repeatedly. So patterns, that I've seen in the community, or different things that, my friends went through. Some of it is I get from my clients. So occasionally, I'll help my client with something, and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's a really good thing to kind of pull out." Obviously, I do it with consent, but and I make it vague enough that no one could connect it to anyone's particular circumstance. But a lot of my content I get from my client sessions. So I always thank my clients and say, as much as I'm speaking to you, I'm also speaking to myself, because I'll say something to a client and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's a really good thing to remember and to put out," because, while it may be specific to what that person is going through, one of my favorite quotes is from King Solomon: "There's nothing new under the sun." And so often I will, make posts, and, people will message me or they'll comment and they'll say, "Are you bugging my house?" They're like, are you spying on us? Like, we just had a conversation about this, or "I wish I would have seen this 2 weeks ago." And while I do believe that I do have something of a gift, also, like, I feel like it's just, these things happen in cycles. Like, something about polyamory that's so interesting is you can go through things and it can feel so isolating. It's like, "Oh, I'm really bad at this," or "We're the only couple that struggles with this," or "I'm the only poly person that, has this struggle." And I'll post something and then people will find out that they're actually not alone at all. And that was really what was my impetus for even beginning to speak and beginning to talk and beginning to share about my own experiences, because I felt so isolated. I felt so bad at poly because I was struggling or having jealousy, or, having a hard time relinquishing control of my partners. And it felt so lonely because, large in part, what I was hearing was, "Oh, this is great. This is wonderful. I'm not jealous. I have all this compersion. This is a great time," and all of these things. And I was like, that is just not my experience at all. And so I started speaking just because I was kind of looking for someone to be glad. Honestly, it was speaking from like this space of like, "Can I get a witness?" Yes, no, can I get a witness? And then kind of becoming that witness for people, where people came to me and I would get these inboxes and I would say, "I'm so glad you talked about that," because I would literally just going through this and I didn't want to talk about it and I had no one that I could talk to about it. And so a lot of like my content also comes from conversations that I have with people. Sometimes me and my friends will have wonderful conversations about relationships, and something I said, or, a reflection that I had, a reflection that they had, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it would be a really great thing." I've seen things from television shows, literally, and working on a post from a song lyric, that I listened to. It's a polyamorous song called "Can't Help But Fly." And there's a lyric that goes, "I love to make you laugh. I love it when you laugh, even if I didn't tell the joke." And that was super poignant for me at this period in my life, because that's something that I kind of struggle with, is that, like, being okay with just being happy that my partners get joy, even if that joy doesn't necessarily come from me, focusing on the fact that I like them laughing, I like them smiling, I like them being happy. And I don't always need to be the source of it in order to feel at ease and to support and to celebrate, that they're receiving joy, has been a major theme for me recently. And so literally I'm trying to, come up with a post that, is from a song lyric. So my inspiration comes from a variety of places.
Yeah. So what are some of your, well, one question, do you happen to have a copy of the book with you or near you? I just want to show it off, first of all, because I think it's just a beautiful book. I love the size and the design and the colors and the layout, and just like, it's just so pretty. And I find it's like really, nice to touch and hold, and it's lovely
Yeah,
when a
it's
book comes out
totally
like
like
that.
my aesthetic. Like when I saw
Mm.
the examples and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it has the
Well, I'm
bisexual
glad you
colors
like
on
it.
it. It's just perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So, do you have any favorite passages or pieces of advice from it that you could share?
So I wouldn't say so I have to actually kind of go back through this and get that because at the time when I was, putting it together, I was really just focused on, okay, I want to get this done. I want to see this thing through to the end because I struggle with starting things and not finishing it. And so that was more
Mhm.
important to me. I haven't really spent time with the book, like where my own time was like, now it's here. Let me spend time with it. Let me see which passages are my favorite. I would probably say that maybe some of my favorite passages are maybe the ones where I'm being the most vulnerable
Mhm.
in sharing myself on them. And then I read, like I said, a passage recently for an event that I did online. And literally my reaction to it as we were like doing the preparation, we had a preparation, meeting for the actual event and we were going through the outline of what it is that we were going to do. And so I chose to read the last one as an excerpt for the event. And so in the preparation meeting, I was reading it, and I literally was like, "Damn, I wrote that!" Like that was my that was my reaction. Like I was like, "Oh, like, wow!" Like I was like, "I really wrote this." And I mean, I know that I did, but it was kind of like shocking to me. Like, oh wow, this thing that I'm holding in my hand, this is something that I wrote. And so probably now the last one I'm going to say is probably my most favorite one, just because it really speaks to the work that I've been doing personally in my own life in the last couple of years around like not letting fear be the determining driver for how I engage in relationships, which has
Mhm.
not been, so throughout the course of my life. Fear was probably the major driver for how I move through relationships. And now, in this stage of my life, I want to choose a different path. So, and so that one's what the last one is about. And so that's probably, I'm going to have to say, is my favorite passage at this point.
Mhm. Yeah. I can really relate to that experience. Well, first of all, of not being totally familiar with what's in a book that you wrote. When I finished More Than Two, I guess we finished the final draft in early 2014, and then the way I am with my creative projects is by the time I'm done with them, like I never want to touch them again. I'm just like get away. So then, we had two book tours. And I just sort of cringed every time I picked up the book and had to read from it. It was actually a very painful process for me. So apart from the parts that I read over and over again on tours, I just didn't read the rest of it. And so I largely forgot what was in it. And then, I think it was like 2017, um, we were at a reading and, we'd always let people make requests. And someone made a request for a certain theme. And so I checked the index for, what did I write on this? And I read it and it happened to be really relevant to something I was going through at the time. And I was like, this is really good advice. you know, I should maybe read this book. It seems like it might be helpful to me. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I love that you brought that up because More Than Two was such a pivotal book for me. It was one of the first ones that I read because we became non-monogamous and polyamorous specifically, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014.
Mhm.
So and so it came out right around that time, and I was struggling. Okay, I was struggling, and so I was like, I need some help. And it really like laid the framework for me to be able to have different ideas than the ones I was working with, because I knew that the ones that I was working with weren't applicable. Like, like it's like it just doesn't apply. If it was like trying to fit, a square peg in a star-shaped hole, like it was just not working.
Mhm.
But I didn't have anything to replace it with. Like I'm like, I don't have anything to replace. I got to put something there. I can't create a void. And I didn't have anything to replace it with. And so it really gave me ideas, to go, these are some of the things that you can replace these other thoughts with that aren't working for what this thing is that you want to do. Because I really wanted to be non-monogamous. Like I wasn't in a situation where my partner had brought it up and I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go along with it because I don't want to lose this person. Like, no, like I was so on board with this. Like I was like, this is absolutely the way I want to live. But I was having such a hard time. And I was like, why am I having such a hard time? I really want to do this. And so that book was very pivotal and like giving me new ways to see things, even if I didn't adopt all of them, but it definitely gave me more options because I was like, okay, this other stuff that I'm working with is just not, yeah, it's not gelling.
I'm really glad to hear that. I have, of course, I wrote that book 10 years ago. I have very mixed feelings about it, but I am working on a second edition that's going to come out next year on the 10th anniversary of the first edition. So
Oh,
I'm
that is
pretty excited
fabulous.
about that. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so what would you say are maybe your top 3 tips for somebody who is new to non-monogamy? I just say non-monogamy now instead of polyamory or consensual non-monogamy or anything else because there's debates around all those words, so that's what I say. But
So the first thing that's coming to mind for me is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Non-monogamy is extremely uncomfortable, even if you are like naturally hardwired for it. And I definitely have met people that are just hardwired for it. It's still uncomfortable. And then you will experience some discomfort, and so get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Learn how to sit with discomfort and not just move off of the first impulse that comes up when you experience it. That is like one of the key tools that I had to learn and develop is just because I'm feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean I need to act, doesn't mean I need to react, doesn't mean I need to respond. Like, sometimes you just got to sit with the discomfort, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because doing that work of unpacking non-monogamy and monogamy, and adopting an entirely different framework for how you function and operate in relationships really requires an ability to be able to sit with discomfort because you experience discomfort at these really, really deeply ingrained levels. And so I would have situations that happened in non-monogamy that on the surface seemed rather benign and innocuous, but it was like I had gotten punched in the gut. Like I would have moments where things were going on in non-monogamy and I was at work. I couldn't function at I couldn't focus on my job, because of just how dysregulated I felt because of what was going on and my thoughts and feelings about what was going on and how terrified I was and how threatened I felt. And it really took developing the tool to be able to like sit with discomfort and like receive whatever message is coming forward from it before I made a choice to act or, like I said, or react or respond or and so get comfortable with being uncomfortable is probably the first one. The second one for me is before you get upset, get curious. That's another one that I would say is probably some advice that I would give someone is question everything. Question what comes up. Is this really reflective of how I think and feel about relationships, or is this programming? Is this wounding? Is this a genuine desire? And I tell people that the questioning is not for you to change your answer. Like that's not really what it is. We're not looking to change the answer unless you have a direction you want to go in. So it's like, okay, I feel jealous and I'd like to move away from feeling jealousy in these situations. So let me examine why I feel this way so that I can see what I need to do in order to move in a different direction. That's fine. But I would tell people, even if at the end of the examination, you come to the same conclusion of how you feel or how you think, at least you know where it's coming from. At least you know why, you have a justification for why that is. And so before you get upset, get curious. And then probably the last thing that I would tell people is polyamory and non-monogamy really brings you face to face with having to grasp the concept that you are enough for you. And the quicker you understand that that's the work, in my opinion, the easier time you'll have of it. For me, that was really where I had to like really hone in. I was actually just having this conversation with someone recently because we were talking about self-love and she was mentioning that she got into non-monogamy and it wasn't a self-love choice. It was a choice that she was utilizing because she was with someone and she wanted to keep the relationship or whatever. And so the choice to become non-monogamous didn't come from a place of self-love, which for me, it wasn't that. It didn't come from that space. I definitely, like I said, I really wanted to do it. But what I realized once I got into it is how much I outsourced my giving of love to the people outside of me. And so, following that, in order to keep myself in good standing to receive this love that these people were giving to me, I had to show up and be all the things to them, because I wanted to keep them around giving me love, And so coming face to face was like, oh, there's someone else that can provide this for this person. There's someone else that can, give them this or give them that or give them joy or give them an experience that they want to have. There's someone that might even be able to do it better or do it in a way that they enjoy more. And that being terrifying because that was synonymous with going, well, what will I use to recommend myself to this person so I can continue to get this stream of love if someone else can do all the things that I can do, or even better, or even more, And so having to come to the understanding that, I am enough for myself, and that's where I really should be making my focus, was really revolutionary for me because, trying to show up and be, everything for someone else just so that I can make sure that they continue to show up and supply this love that I needed for me. It really got in the way of me being able to be at ease with my partners interacting with other people because I felt so like, oh no, like, I have to continue to, be everything for this person so I can keep them here loving me. And so that was one of the main resonant themes that came up for me in the beginning is like, figure out how to become enough for you so that if this person stays, if this person goes, it's not to say you won't feel pain about it or you won't miss them or wish that things had gone differently, but you're not going to live in like this, like terror, like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, because, you're enough for you.
Yeah. I think that's what Jessica Fern would call secure attachment with self.
Mm-hmm. I did not have a secure attachment with myself at all. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that not having that, in my experience, has also made it difficult for me to set boundaries. And, sort of because to be able to set really clear boundaries in a relationship, you have to be ready to lose that relationship because there's always the possibility that the other person's going to say, well, that just doesn't work for me. And, what would happen with me is, I'd say like, well, this is what I need. And they'd be like, well, that's not going to work for me. And, I needed to be able to say, well, okay, then I guess we're not compatible in this particular way. And we need to like realign what we're doing. And instead I would be like, oh, well, maybe I don't really need that thing because I can't lose you. So yeah, tough lesson.
Yeah, very much so. And I exist in such a way where I'm very much okay, well that's fine, kind of space. But you're right. It came from, well, I don't want to lose this person. And so, whatever it is that they are bringing to me, I'm going to accept because, having them is more important than like having myself,
Yeah.
I was more attached to them than I was attached to myself. And now my focus is more on being in relationships where I feel like I can maintain an attachment to both of us. I can maintain my attachment to myself and my attachment to you. But if the choice is you or me, okay, I'm going to make the choice me every time. Yeah.
Yeah. The people in the relationship are more important than the relationship.
Right.
To quote more than two. Yeah. With regard to, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, how do you something that I always struggle with is, when is it too much? When is it not, this is not a growing pain, but this is a injury pain. This is a shrinking pain. This is, actual, like, so when do I stop saying, oh, I'm tolerating discomfort and decide, this is actually too much for me and I'm going to do something maybe that feels better. So that's something that I part of my work for myself. So do you have any suggestions for someone who's kind of struggling with that question?
Yeah. I think that that's something that we all struggle with. I think to me, what I've found is most important for me in that, or what's coming forward for me as I think about that is number one, um, learning how to trust your inner voice so that you believe that you know. I think that that happens a lot with people. If people they're so disconnected and so disembodied from their bodies, that they really don't trust their inner voice. And I understand that our inner voices do get shaped by trauma, it gets shaped by wounding, it gets shaped by societal ideals. And so sometimes we don't even know like what our inner voice is. So learning how to reconnect with your inner voice, listening to yourself, sitting with yourself is important so that you know what your voice is, so that when your inner voice is telling you, this is your limit, that you can hear that and you can receive it and you can trust it because you've built a relationship with your inner voice. Like that's the first thing that's coming forward for me. And then another thing that's coming forward for me is ditch the self-judgment. So many people have so much judgment on the fact that they're uncomfortable about something and they want to do something about it that and especially in the non-monogamous community, I see that more than any place else because there's so much judgment on jealousy. There's so much judgment on you not being okay with something. Oh, that might be controlling. Don't ask for that. There's so much judgment there that people sort of like grit their teeth and do this. I'm going to endure as much as possible in order to show up as being the good poly person or to prove a point. And I tell people all the time, throw that mess out. I'm like, if if you are not okay, with your partner bringing their long distance, partner to the house to stay for the weekend and you're going to be home, say that. Okay. And don't feel no ways about it. And so ditch the self-judgment. You get to be uncomfortable where you're uncomfortable and to name that. And while I do believe that we should, get to a place where we challenge ourselves or where we're looking at ourselves and going, okay, like, is there something about this that I maybe need to move? But I feel like a lot of that like how much is too much comes from people, like I said, trying to prove a point and trying to bear as much as they can possibly bear for the sake of, like I said, being a good poly person because they have so much judgment for the fact that they have any discomfort at all. And so ditching the self-judgment to your discomfort, to me, I feel like is one of the easiest ways for you to be able to get to the space to where you can trust your discernment to when it's like, oh, this is just something that's small and I can kind of rise through. And this is something that's major that I actually need to do something to address because you're allowing all discomfort to be okay. And so you can't categorize something that you're judging as not supposed to be there in the first place. Like you can't class it because literally the first thing that you're doing is get out of here, get out of here, get out of here, So it's really hard for you to be able to like discern, where what the scale is on something that you don't even want there to be a scale for at all. You can't really, bring discernment to that. And so ditch the self-judgment, allow yourself the space to be uncomfortable. And then a last thing that I would say is allow yourself the space to ask for, actions that would help you to mitigate, discomfort and get yourself in the practice of that. Even if it's something small, if you can identify that there's something that you want that does not infringe upon the autonomy of the other person, that allows them the space to say yes or no, and allows them to say, hey, I don't want to do this. Like get into the practice of allowing yourself to ask for things that you can identify can help you mitigate discomfort so that you don't get to the space where now the discomfort is unbearable and it might not have gotten there had you had been practiced at asking for these things that you could need in order to mitigate discomfort to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. So what about advice for people who are experienced at non-monogamy? Would your advice for them be different? What are some key pieces that you might?
It would be the same because I feel like that's something that we can all do. I think it would also, I would say for people that are doing it longer, it'd be okay with something that you used to be comfortable with, not being comfortable anymore. Because we're not static as human beings. We've shift, we evolved, the situation shift. Just because, you were really cool with going on vacation with you and your partner and your metamor and y'all staying in the same hotel room 2 years ago, doesn't mean that that's in the space that you're in now, and you need to be okay with that. And so I feel like that falls into the space of like ditching the self-judgment, but like understand that like you are going to shift and change, your desires are going to shift and change in this. And I think sometimes when we've been doing it for a really long time is we can kind of get like very, very attached to like who we were once before. And I feel like that goes in both positive ways and negative ways. Like sometimes I show up to a situation thinking that I'm going to have a hard time with it, and I don't, because old me used to have a hard time with it and I didn't. And so I would say for people that are older, you know, in non-monogamy, is constantly be getting to know yourself. Like, don't just assume that you're just going, like I said, to stay the same. Like you, like this, the process of self-discovery in non-monogamy doesn't stop just because you've gotten some years under your chops. Like, you know, it's still going to present new things to you. You're still going to have moments of learning yourself in this. New situations arise all the time, and they reveal new things. And you need to kind of be comfortable with that and keeping that. What's coming forward for me is like keeping that beginner's mind, like they talk about in like Buddhism, keeping a beginner's mind is really, really crucial to me in this living this way.
So I'd like to, if you want, turn it over to you for a bit, see if there's anything that you want to share about your book, about your experience, about your social media, anything, as well as any questions that you might have for me.
Sure. So I am really, really grateful for number one, this opportunity. It's still surreal to me. Like I remember we have these little moments, you know. So what was the most surreal moment to me is when I got the book and I saw that it had an ISBN. Like that was like, I don't know why that stuck out at me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have a book, it has an ISBN number. Like, whoa, that's wild. And so it's still very surreal to me, but I feel a ton of gratitude for the opportunity to be able to do this, especially as a person who loves books. So it's like wild to me that like I have a book. You know, I've grown up, I was a voracious reader as a kid. I love books. And so the fact that I have one is like mind-boggling to me. I I hope you read something in the book that you don't agree with. I didn't write the book so that I could get this like feedback of just every page. Just I hope you read something in the book that you don't agree with. I hope you read something in the book that makes you uncomfortable. I hope you read something in the book that challenges your beliefs. I hope you read something in the book that you're able to get to a place to saying, okay, yeah, that's kind of what she said, but that ain't for me because that's a point. You know, I didn't write this book in order for me to like create this army of individuals that think and feel how I do. The point of the book is to take a moment to have an idea presented to you about non-monogamy and check in with yourself about what is true for you. And that's what I kind of want people to go into the book with, that mindset is I'm not looking for a blueprint. I'm not looking for a roadmap. I'm not looking for a to-do list, you know, you know, I mean, there are tips in the book and those things, but what I really want people to look at or find in the book is themselves. Where do you stand on this? How do you feel about this? What is true for you about this? What is your answer to this idea? That is most important to me rather than just, like I said, having a bunch of people coming back and saying, oh my gosh, everything that you said was amazing. Is, you know, I really want people to go back and say, you helped me discover where my yes was, where my no was, where my absolutely was. You helped me find that. Even if it doesn't match what mine are, that's not the point. Is I really, really want people to find themselves in the pages. And so that's really what's most important for me. And as far as just other things, social media wise, I'm Lavitaloca Sawyers, on actually Lavitaloca 34 on Instagram is what my Instagram handle is. That's mostly where I post most of my content. I feel like I'm a reluctant, you know, kind of content creator. I'm a reluctant, you know, influencer, quote unquote. I don't even like that term. When people say that to me, I cringe royally because I'm just like, you know, I'm just a person who felt like you know, I wanted to talk about these things. I wanted to talk about as many to many people as possible about the things. Like I said, I wanted a witness. I really just wanted a witness. And I still feel like that's how I feel. Is I just want a witness. I really I want I create this stuff because I go. Is somebody out there? Can you hear me? You know, I mean, is this thing on? You know, that's kind of how I feel. What my energy is in my content creation. But fortunately, I'm very grateful that it resonates with people. I've gotten some wonderful messages. I literally probably one of my favorite. I've gotten many, but one of the ones that I get them that I love the most is I remember I went to a meetup here in New York, and someone came up to me and they told me that reading one of my posts was the first time that they were able to breathe normally in days. And
Wow.
when I hear stuff like that is when it becomes really, really powerful for me. That like that's where it gets worthwhile, because you get people that say, I don't like this thing that you said, or they want to correct you or whatever, or they don't agree, and they get to have that space. But when someone comes to me and and they tell me that I help them to breathe again, or I help them to, I've had people tell me that I gave them the courage to leave a relationship that was abusive to them and wasn't serving them. Like, it's when I get those comments, or when people reach out to me and tell me that impact on them, that really makes it worthwhile for me, and goes, okay, this thing that I'm doing is it has value. And so yeah.
It occurs to me that this is a particularly great book for book clubs, because those bite-sized, essentially one-page vignettes are just going to be really great for launching discussions, I think.
Right.
Book
I've even had
clubs,
people tell
poly
me that
101s.
polycules, like polycules, where like they'll pick a, post and, bring it to the polycule, and everybody will discuss, their ideas or their thoughts on it. I've had people come to tell me that, posts that I've made, they got in arguments. I've had people tell me that frequently, actually. And so I'm like, use at your own risk. Results may vary, but yeah, but I think I like that because of the way it's structured, that there's all kinds of ways that it can be utilized, so that it can, serve a wider range of persons. So I enjoy the accessibility of the format for people, that they, it's kind of like, like I said, you can kind of choose your own adventure, I feel like, with the book. And so I really like that.
Yeah. Great. Anything else that you want to add or ask?
No, I feel pretty complete. So I'm like I said, once again, gratitude for the opportunity. Thank you for believing in the work. And thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of myself with everyone.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, we have already ordered a second printing. So congratulations.
Really?
Yeah, it has done, just with pre-orders, it's done a lot better than, it's always, there's so much guesswork going into the initial print run, especially for a book like this, which is kind of different from what we've published before. So yeah, about a month ago, we took a look and we're like, looks like those books are going to be gone by Pub Day, so maybe we should order some more. So yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. And like I said, it's so surreal. Like, I'm like, oh, I mean, you don't, obviously you want it to do well, but you never know. You know what I mean? There's, like you said, it's always it's a crapshoot. You never know. But that is just that is elating to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you. And yeah, it's a beautiful book. It's a great book. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and very enlightening for a lot of people. So yeah, I hope it does well. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for, I said, believing in the work. Thank you for allowing me the space to have a voice in this community, and give something to the community, because it is a community that I care a ton about. And I care a ton about, how do we, I would say this all the time. I said, there's being polyamorous, and then there's being polyamorous well.
But we're all allowed to be imperfectly polyamorous.
We're all allowed to be imperfectly polyamorous, but yeah, there's being polyamorous, and then there's being polyamorous well, and like navigating it well. And when I say well, I don't mean dotting, like I said, dotting every I, crossing every T, showing up and being perfect, but making sure that you're being kind and loving to yourself, and you're being kind and loving to the human beings that you're coming into contact with. And that can sometimes be hard, because human beings are vast and unique. And that has to be very, very, it's very subjective. But when I say doing polyamorous well, is how am I being kind to others? Am I being empathetic? Am I being compassionate? Am I being loving? And then am I also extending those things to myself?
Yeah.